Today we're gathering around the campfire with Brian, a QHS member whose life is as exciting and grounding as a hike through the mountains. But what trails did he tread to reach these heights? Let's trek into the wilderness and discover the adventures that led Brian to where he is today.
Hi, my name is Brian David, and I appreciate your joining me for this prequel. I'd like to briefly share a few of my favorite stories, talk about some of the influences and experiences that have left their mark during my 64 years on this planet. But first, I'd like to share a word of thanks with the team that has created this opportunity for all of us: Cynthia, Tracy, Dr. Gloria, and the rest of the administrative team. I'm grateful to have the opportunity to splice together some of the patterns of my life and share them with you today. I was born in 1960 in the heart of the American Midwest, Minneapolis, Minnesota. I was a happy 8-pound baby with curly black hair and enormous black brown eyes. Unfortunately, I have no photos for any of the stories I'm going to be sharing today, but I will do my best to create some vivid word pictures for you. My parents, Frank and Lucille, had me later in their lives and were well established by the time that I came along. Dad was building a promising career with Westinghouse Electric. Mom was a part-time bookkeeper and a full-time mother. They both adored me. They cared for me and provided for me, and I was very fortunate to have chosen them. I was an only child, quiet, curious, well-mannered, but with a willful streak that could show up at the most unexpected times. In Minneapolis, a little story here, in Minneapolis, we had a preschool television show called Romper Room that was broadcast daily. I watched the show religiously, and I begged my mom to get me a ticket to attend. You see, I was a builder from an early age, and I loved playing with Tinker toys, blocks, and Legos. And there was something on the show that had caught my eye. The kids on the show got to play with these big styrofoam bricks and make structures like castles that they could actually step into. Couldn't do that with my blocks. I wanted to play with those big blocks so bad. Well, the day finally arrived. I was on Romper Room. Miss Betty was presiding. And there were the blocks. And we had to wade our way through what seemed like endless cartoons and activities, distractions. But then, finally, we were released to play with the blocks. Now, even as a preschooler, I was a very intent and intense little. And I rolled up my little sleeves and I set to building that castle that I've been dreaming about for all these past months. And that's when it happened. I heard Miss Betty saying, "Class, let's put away the blocks. It's time for everybody to dance." She must be kidding. This thing is nowhere built. I'm just getting warmed up. Well, then the willful streak showed up. And I decided I was going to stay with the blocks. "Class, time to dance." I'm still building. "Brian, maybe you didn't hear. Come over here and join the dancers." Still building. "Brian, come over. Join the dancers now." "No, I don't want to." Well, that clinched it. Next thing I knew, dear Miss Betty had my arm in tow, unceremoniously escorting me off the TV set and releasing me to wander the KSTP studios on the 27th floor of the downtown Fauché Tower. Well, after wandering for what seemed like an eternity, I found my mom. And you know, most mothers would have been mortified by something like that. But bless her heart, my mom just took it all in stride, and I never heard another word about it. Now, the themes of building and working with my hands would stay with me throughout my life. I graduated from blocks to model building and electronics. I would find an interest and pursue it until I tired of it. I've come to call these my enthusiasms. And my parents were great about supporting them. It didn't matter if it was drafting, woodwork, metalwork, or fly tying. Mom and Dad supported me in getting the tools and the training so that I could do it right. I didn't realize until much later in my life what a profound blessing it was. At the age of 8, I found a new enthusiasm: music. I'd always had strong musical inclinations, and it was something that came easily for me, but now I was formalizing it with music studies and keyboard training. Music fed my soul, and I found my bliss. Now, you need to remember that this was the late 1960s when console TVs and stereos were absolutely the last word in home entertainment, and long before texting and video games had been conceived, much less invented. In the day, organs and pianos were the big-ticket entertainment centers of the household. Folks would gather around the young'un at the organ and sing the old songs together. Well, that at least the photos on the organ brochures suggested that they did. Now, some of you from my generation might remember going to the state fair, visiting the home improvement building, and seeing the booth displaying the latest Hammond organs. Along with the newest models, there was usually a kid on display playing "The World is Waiting for the Sunrise" or "Steel Guitar Rag" or "Blue Spanish Eyes" in an effort to draw a crowd that the studio salesman could work. Well, in very short order, I became that kid, and I played fairs all over the Midwest, and this laid a foundation for my first job with the local Hammond organ studio. It was a job I stayed with through high school. In high school, my interest in music blossomed, and I eventually found myself playing in concert band, marching band, pep band, jazz band, and even the concert orchestra. I didn't realize until many years later how much satisfaction and sanity music brought into my life. I was a good student. I worked hard for my A's. Math, physics, chemistry, no problem. I was always an avid reader, and I enjoyed learning and figuring out how things work. Even as a child, I remember going to the amusement park and riding the rides. The other kids would be screaming and yelling while I was quietly looking at the mechanisms in the center of the ride and figuring out what made the gondolas go up and down. By the time I got to college, this interest would develop into a captivation to get to the root of things and to learn what made the world go around. I found my answers in literature, psychology, world religions, and philosophy. I finished college in the mid-1980s at the height of the economic recession, and this destined me to building a career out of a mixed bag of jobs and experiences that didn't seem to form any kind of pattern until I reached my 50s, when I could finally see that each step was building on the previous. I was always able to succeed at anything I put my mind to, and I became skilled at a lot of different things: sales, technology, graphic arts, advertising, marketing, content creation, web development, strategic planning, leadership, team building. I ultimately hit my stride in an operations career, which played to all of my skills and appealed to my polymath sensibilities. Taken all together, these experiences set me up to build a very successful consulting business that I ultimately sold so that I could retire in my late 50s and take interesting projects as they came. The next chapter of my life was a drastic, seminal sea change. In 2011, my wife and I decided to seek out a better way of life. We left our Midwestern lives behind and moved lock, stock, and barrel to Ecuador, where we learned what it meant to live in a South American mountain pueblo. Neither Pat nor I were known for doing things by half measure, and we embraced the change with gusto, left everything behind, and never looked back. Our friends thought we were crazy. Maybe they were right. I made the leap without any training in Spanish, which was either very brave or very foolish, probably both. Actually, I had 3 words. I had buenos dias, I had baño, and taco. Only taco isn't a Spanish word, it's actually a Mexican word, so it didn't serve me particularly well. No hablo mucho español. Aprendí español de la calle. I learned my Spanish on the streets. Ecuador is a beautiful country. It's a country of beautiful people. My time there taught me a lot about living abroad and about myself. Beautiful weather, check. Clean organic food, check. Low cost of living, check. No daylight savings time, check. We both thought that this was what the rest of our lives would look like. But all these benefits came at an unimaginably high cost. Tragedy struck 7 years in when my wife of 30 years passed. What started as an innocuous UTI turned septic, and she was gone in 8 weeks. She was my lover, my business partner, and my best friend. And I couldn't do a damn thing to save her. Pat's passing turned out to be the genesis of the health challenges that I'm facing right now today. I have several big challenges that I have ahead of me, and I know that these will all be addressed during our do-over. Most predominant of these is a diagnosis of end-stage renal disease or severe kidney failure. The experience definitely falls under the category of the universe doesn't give you what you want, it gives you what you need. And while this may well be true, I still have trouble reconciling it. I have trouble because I enjoyed a pretty healthy life for most of my years. My energy was always pretty good. I had what I needed to take the next hill, regardless of whether that mountain was a personal one or business related. And even as a kid, my health was very good. I was blessed with a godfather who was a chiropractor, and both my mom and dad embraced this healing modality. I started getting chiropractic treatments at a very early age, which served me well and strengthened my immune system. When I reached the age where my friends were dealing with childhood diseases like mumps and measles, my parents would make a point of sending me over to their houses so that I could work my way through the illnesses at a young age. Well, I would routinely come home with no ill effects time after time. My folks finally gave up and declared that I must have an exceptionally strong immune system and called it a day. My mom also had a natural and healthy distrust of allopathic medicine, and this resulted in her finding ways to exempt me from childhood vaccinations. I was always grateful for that, and I feel like it was a big contributor to the levels of health that I did enjoy. I never smoked. I didn't drink to excess by any standard. I ate organic. I tried more food plans than I can remember. No kidney issues in the family. I asked myself, how the hell did we arrive with a diagnosis of ERSD? Well, Ecuador was the genesis. Severe mold exposure, gout, a precursor to kidney disease, where your body can't process purines and uric acid. Extreme trauma. And yet, Ecuador also gave back a portion of what had been taken. The story does have a happy ending, in that I met my current business partner, best friend, and caregiver, who introduced me to advanced homeopathics and natural healing remedies. As a naturopath and homeopath, she was uniquely qualified to help me begin to heal the root causes of the kidney issues that I was facing. She saved my life more than once, and I owe her an enormous debt of gratitude. The healing trend that began in Ecuador was cut short in 2019 when civil unrest erupted there. In a matter of days, streets were filled with soldiers, barbed wire barriers, tear gas, and UN peacekeeping tanks and personnel carriers. Peaceful mountain towns turned overnight into war zones. Fearing for our lives, my business partner and I nervously waited through several days of canceled and rescheduled flights, arriving for the first time at the airport with 2 bags apiece, and finally leaving Ecuador and all that we had saved and worked for behind us, traveling once again in search of a better life. The plane landed in Texas, where I've been for 5 years this month. That's where I intend to stay. In these last 5 years, unfortunately, my health has declined precipitously. Any ground gained in Ecuador has long been lost here. The worst of the journey began in January of 2022, when I contracted COVID and was bedridden for 4 months. This was the final straw that resulted in my kidneys shutting down. The diagnosis of end-stage kidney failure came in May of that year, along with a 3-month hospital stay. I began receiving kidney dialysis as a hospital outpatient for the remainder of that year, and I've been receiving dialysis 4 hours a day, 3 days a week since then at a dialysis clinic about 30 minutes from my home. Dialysis is an unfortunate necessary evil. It takes your energy. It steals your spirit. I don't care how much you pride yourself on having a positive mental attitude. It will grind you down to dust. The Twine Wave devices have been a godsend in this regard, and they've played a big part in helping me stay relatively positive and hopeful as I've been walking this road. In addition to the time demands, dialysis also places a lot of other demands on your body in terms of symptoms and side effects. Daily energy levels are extremely unpredictable. The kidneys regulate hemoglobin production in the body, and when they don't work, energy levels become very volatile. Dialysis also steals your electrolytes. Without supplements of minerals and magnesium, I deal with leg weakness and restless limbs. Sometimes they're so severe that I can't sleep at night. Finding any kind of balance is a constant dance, whether it's physical or mental. On the physical side, I have to moderate potassium-rich foods, or I risk setting myself up for cardiac events. I need to moderate phosphorus-rich foods and take phosphorus-binding drugs to try to keep my levels low. And when I fail at this, I deal with extreme itching everywhere. On the mental, spiritual side, I'm prone to mood swings. I can go from feeling hopeful to feeling hopeless in a heartbeat. Indigestion is also a known side effect of dialysis. Heartburn, nausea, and vomiting have become constant companions for me. I have also developed a very intense cough that I can't seem to shake. And my sleep cycles are impacted as well. Insomnia is very common. Overall, I'd say weakness and fatigue are the greatest culprits. Still, I try to keep some perspective. The dialysis center that I go to is filled with people who are far worse off than I am. The collective need for healing is staggering. Thankfully, healing is on the way. I'm looking forward to having all of these issues resolved as a result of our do-over. Right now, I have a chest catheter that provides access for the hemodialysis treatments that I receive. I'm looking forward to that disappearing. I've also developed a lipoma on the back of my neck, a benign fatty cyst. I think if I turn, you can see it. It's been with me for a long, long time, but it's grown significantly in the last few years, and it makes sense to me because it serves as a storage area for the toxins that my body can't otherwise eliminate. I look forward to it disappearing as well in our do-over. We all face a very, very bright future with health, strength, and resiliency. Our task is to remember this in the face of the weary days that threaten to steal our solace. We will heal. We will find our peace. And then we can find our pace. We're extremely fortunate to be pioneers on this journey. This is the path home. Let's walk it together in gratitude and hope. Thanks for listening.
Join us on the Prequel, where every story matters and every voice is heard. Because here at QHS, we're all about healing, learning, and growing together.